I am Marlene Le Roux. I've contracted polio when I was 3 months old, and I had the privilege to have a wonderful boy for 16 years, Adam, who was cerebral palsy. So I was a mother with a disability and a child with a disability. I have another daughter, Amy. Today I'm introducing an inclusive model of disability, exploring how performing arts facilitate the social and economic inclusion of youth with disabilities. My background and why I'm doing this particular study. Artscape was built during the apartheid era. Currently, I am the CEO of Artscape Theatre Building. It was conceptualized only for white patrons. 1994, at the wonderful dawn of our South African democracy, the theatre complex embarked on a journey to embrace all citizens of South Africa, but also embrace that we come from different cultural backgrounds, different languages, different geographical areas, because apartheid was constructed geographically to separate each other from one another. However, this particular program didn't include persons with disabilities. Even the building was designed inaccessible to those with disabilities. My question and aim was, how can interaction with the performing arts facilitate the economic and social inclusion of youth with disabilities? The aim? Explore how participating in different events at Artscape Theatre Centre in Cape Town, South Africa, facilitates the social and economic inclusion of youth with disabilities. Critically, I was thinking, why currently, with this wonderful opportunities that there are for young people, that young people don't access these opportunities with disabilities, that young people don't participate in our schools' programs, don't participate to come to the theatre, even if the building as it currently is now is accessible for persons with disabilities. My objectives then are describe the experience of youth with disabilities that have attended a performance at Artscape Theatre Centre, because we've embarked then on a program to literally coming physically to Artscape Theatre. Explain how being at Artscape influences the career aspirations of youth with a disability, because the young people with disabilities don't access the opportunities. They're not part of the workforce. And that was a critical aspect why I was asking these particular questions. Can the arts eliminate the social and life skills learned through interaction with performing arts? Identify factors that influence the participation of youth with disabilities in the performing arts. Investigate how participation in performing arts contributes to their social and economic inclusion. The significance of the study. This study sheds some light on the relevance of Artscape with regards to the inclusion of youth with disabilities in mainstream social and economic development. I repeat, disabilities in mainstream social and economic development. It is one way in which this institution can realize and manifest its mandate to deliver services to all patrons, especially those with disabilities who have historically been excluded, and not just about patrons, about colour, about geographical backgrounds that was excluded to the building. Now I would like to embark on existing models of disabilities. The existing models that is out there, that is currently existing, is the charity model that looks at tragic and sad handouts. You need to fit in you need to fit on a charity basis that somebody must help you. Then we have the social model. The social model is based on where it's not inclusive, it's inadequate education, inadequate services. Then we have the medical model. It is care. You need, because doctors are trained that you must cure a patient. Scientists are based to find a cure for polio. You need to look at how the medical fraternity can help you in order to make you better. So it's based on rehabilitation, it's based on assistive devices. Then there's the right-based model that is based on no self-determination. It's based on discrimination of life. You don't have any rights. You need to depend on others. Then you have the affirmative model. And this affirmative model is non-conforming to the social stereotyping. It's about being proud, but it's also about not defined by bodily experiences. Then one of which is extremely based on the South African that we can at least embarked on, but we can identify with, is it the intersectionality, which was a concept that was coined by the feminist Crenshaw. It is based on the triple oppression: poor, black and abuse. But in the context of Africa and South Africa, I have in particular looked at the lapis kombers, and in English we called it like the quilt kombers, a quilt that you throw over yourself, and it's made by different offcuts of wool that you knit together, that you crochet together. And in South Africa we look at transport. It's not just about triple oppression. It is about cultural background. It is about being black, being poor, coming from the rural areas. You are actually born into poverty and you die in poverty. And when you're in Africa and you have a disability and you're poor, you're black, you come from the rural areas, and there is still the cultural background where you come from, where people still have belief systems that if you have disabled, the ancestors are looking badly unto you, or your body parts are being used for muti. And those are the kind of stigmas that we are living in, mostly in South Africa and in Africa. My personal experience is that I am disabled. My mother was a single parent, a farm worker, and I've experienced being rural, black, disabled, poor. So I experienced the lapis kombers in all its forms and never had access to transport to make it accessible for my freedom to be wherever I want to be. Hence the fact I've then come across the theories of Maslow theory that is more based on a hierarchical system of the holistic development of persons, where all needs are not on the same levels, versus the Chilean economist McNeef's human scale development, that to be a human being, you need protection, affection, understanding, participation in life. You need to embark on a journey to be creative. You need to look at self-agency, identity. What is your identity? Where do you come from? And also the freedom of moving around, to experiencing the world, to access theatre, to access work, to access opportunities. Hence the fact, with all these particular models that is out there, I've then embarked on a journey to look at an African experience and to embark on a journey to look at an exclusive model of disability to enhance social and economic inclusion for young people, especially young people with disabilities that comes from disadvantaged backgrounds, but also young people with disabilities that just wants to be and to be full persons and have access to the freedom to develop themselves in order for them to access opportunities. And then I've looked at the blocks of blown away. I've looked at emotional support. My model is based on emotional support, human rights, adequate education, adequate services, skills and abilities, freedom of choice, social stereotyping, and the non-conformity to social stereotyping. Then there's a block that I said, I can do it, you can do it. And it's based how young people with disabilities needs to see themselves and also to interact with each other, but also mainstreaming. So I can do it, you can do it is based on there should be rehabilitation, should be there. Resilience is of utmost importance. To be resilient is to understand and self-acceptance that you do have a disability. But how am I going to overcome against all odds? So you need to have confidence. You need to have self-determination. You need to not to conform to what you are in a box, that people place you in a box. You need to confront your fears. You need to have a positive identity and its empowerment of self. So self-agency is extremely important. Embracing hope. Self-employment. If you are not employed, your dignity, then you are only concentrating on accessing grants. A living wage, it's not just about being an intern, it's about earning your own salary. Important, imagination. If you can dream, vision without action, then the vision will only be a pipe dream. Positive identity. In order for you to contribute to the social and economic inclusion, to be part of mainstreaming, you need to have a positive identity to be able to be participatory in the social society, to be creative, to be a programming, IT programmer. You need to be able to have a creative mind. Hence the fact that the arts plays a major role, and creativity is when you have social interaction. You need to be able to go out. It's not just about the medical model. It is about you need to take your medicines. You need to have assistive devices. You need to be employment. You need to have that. The companies needs to have an incentive. So if I'm blind, I need to have the tools to be able to be equal in the workplace. Equity counts. So equality and equity works hand in hand. Assistive devices is of utmost importance to have employment in the workplace. Skills development. I need to access education. I need to have access from primary school to higher education. Tertiary education needs to be able to recruit from the further education and training band, and those things needs to be interlinked. So education can't just be based on tertiary education. It should start with primary school education. And care also needs to be there. We need to be taken care of. For instance, I need to have a carer to get me out of bed, to be able to assist me, but my main focus should not be to be a holistic person that they only depend on a carer. A long way to go. Accessible and flexible transport. If you don't have accessible and flexible transport. You are trapped in your shack. You are trapped in your home. You won't be able to move from the rural to the urban areas. You won't be able to move from your special needs schools after you finish your special needs school to be able to access tertiary education, to be able to access work opportunities, to enable you to go to a movie, to enable you to go to a theatre complex like Artscape, to enable you to meet other young people, to dance, to interact, to have a nice drink, to dress up, and to be mainstreaming is not just to get your tablets at the local hospital or to access rehabilitation. Embracing our diversity is much bigger than just having a carer to look after you. An inclusive model of disability. An inclusive model of disability moves beyond existing model of disability, as I explained previously, namely the charity model, medical model, social model, rights-based model, and affirmative model with the intersectionality, with a primary focus on accessible transport. It promotes an inclusive approach towards the whole person, where persons with disabilities can resist social stereotypes, confront their fears, build a positive identity with creativity and curiosity, acquire skills and confidence, experience social participation, and through this process pave the way to greater social and economic inclusion. The blown away factors. Blown away refers to the overwhelming experience of youth with disabilities that have attended a performance, a film, an event, a social event of just coming together and just being and not just discussing policies, how I need to access a grant, how I need to access rehabilitation. An inclusion model proposes that through being able to attend a social event or performance, social stereotypes are being transformed, allowing all to envision a space where disabled youth are free to choose which performances they would like to watch, because the physical environment has developed measures with adequate services to ensure that the event or the social event or performance is accessible to all. I can do it if you can do it. I can do it if you can do it addresses how being at Artscape with all other young people, hence being disabled or not being disabled, may influence the career aspirations of young people with a disability. Because when they are peers with the same age, disability disappear. They talk about how it is, what is the new IT system, what is the new phones, how they can be on social media, how can they interact with each other. Rehabilitation is not just about medical aspects, but goes hand in hand with social interaction. Through continued exposure to new things outside of what they are normally used to by just being with themselves and their families, disabled youth are not only able to build their confidence, but also their resilience, as they are able to now explore and discover their own unique personal abilities, but also acceptance of their disabilities and how can they navigate being in a wheelchair, being blind, being deaf. How do they navigate in mainstreaming, in a building where other young people are as well coming together and feeling that I am part of the world. That's extremely unique to build resilience. The arts then creates opportunities of engagement and interaction which can be inspirational and empowering on so many levels that can result in a process of self-determination. When you watch a production with everybody, you don't watch a production and you don't experience a film and you don't experience a social interaction in a building as a person with a disability. You experience that production and the social interaction as a human being. Embracing hope. Hope is extremely important because hope with action gives you a focus on the social and life skills that are learned through attending all these social activities. And Artscape at this particular stage has embarked on this journey for a performance and an event attending persons with disabilities can attend, in working towards an inclusive approach that addressing the whole person gives emotional support is vital, as it allows for a care-based ethic to develop where sharing can occur based on the notion of interdependence and connectedness. Contrary to historic perceptions, it is not because the disabled person is incapable of fully participating in mainstream activities, but rather because society has shut off most avenues to their development. Social participation, positive identity, life skills and creativity will lead to greater progress in social and economic inclusion through a process of gaining self-mastery. I've always asked the questions, when we recruit young people and there is an advert in the newspaper, there's a work available, very few young people apply for a job. And this study has shown the why factors. It is because gaining self-mastery, and when you're trapped in your situation, you have not the confidence to say, I can apply and I can make a success. A long way to go. It is really a challenge, especially in the African context. How this transport factor excludes young people with disabilities, freedom of attending a performance, and the opportunity to engage with others outside of restricted time frames. When young people have the confidence, have mastered self-agency, there is still the factor that if you don't have access to transport and you come from the rural areas, you're black, you're poor, your parents don't have transport, it restricted you to access opportunities. Young persons with disabilities should be mainstreamed with regards to social activities, creating the awareness amongst all of the notion of diverse but equal. Equality versus equity is of utmost importance, and transport plays a major role. Accessible and flexible transport plays a major role for young people with disabilities who are from the rural areas and from the urban areas to access job opportunities and social spaces. These spaces should be spaces for reciprocal learning, whereby the disabled youth can engage and learn from the non-disabled peers, and the non-disabled peers can in turn learn from their disabled peers. So then we're looking at how do we look at young people overall, how they can learn from each other to enable society to be an equitable society. The visibility of disabled persons should be heightened so that societies can be aware of the barriers faced by youth with disabilities and overall faced by persons with disabilities. A platform needs to be created whereby both groups gets to know one another without fear, where this diversity is embraced and anxieties are reduced so that the way to greater social economic inclusion can be paved. If we are not embarking on this particular journeys and critical questions that can be implemented meaningful, that enhances social and economic inclusions from a young age, our society are always going to be fearful to employ persons with disabilities. Towards social and economic inclusion, and my model speaks about this very clearly and very directly. An inclusive model of disability is based on person and people-centered development, primarily focusing on transport, inclusion of social events, inclusion of young people and overall persons with disability in the society. Without accessible and flexible transport, a deprivation occurs whereby youths with disabilities are not able to fully partake and engage in society in order to enhance the opportunities towards social and economic inclusion. This inclusion model addresses barriers to participation through focusing on ways to ensure that the whole person, like I've said previously, based on the Max Neef's model, is able to access opportunities and possibilities. This model addresses ways that society's attitudes, the natural environment, services and systems, support structures and products and technology together is able to build bridges which will ensure that inclusive development acknowledges and accommodates disabled youth on educational, social, livelihoods and empowering fronts. Conclusions. This study has explored the impact of the arts on disabled persons and concluded that potential exists for disability inclusion and participation in the performing arts. Through its creative expression of life and culture, the arts are the perfect medium for integrating disabled youth into mainstream activities and providing them with a stepping stone from which they can gain confidence, learn and make the contacts needed to further advance their careers and empower themselves to apply for jobs and to be equipped and to navigate their way with resilience into the mainstream society. Recommendations beyond artscape. Young persons with disabilities should be empowered on all levels by breaking the mold and recalibrating the general view of the public as to what the disabled individual needs. Unless the community on all levels are educated about disability or become knowledgeable about disability, negative attitudes will prevail. Broader community-based participation and grassroots awareness disability campaigns and objectives should go beyond just awareness raising. Curriculum development on all levels. There should be awarenesses on all school levels. There should be awareness and support for families of people with disabilities in the communities, but it also should be addressed on a tertiary level, where the curriculum of all disciplines on a tertiary level should be integrated, should have a model on disabilities, so that the young people that is learning at universities should be aware when they apply their skills going out into the world with their degrees, that they're aware that they need to address persons with disabilities in their workplaces, in universities, because they are the new leaders that will embrace persons with disabilities and will then embark on their leadership to say that society needs to look at holistic development. A concerted effort should be made that government institutions like Artscape do further research regarding how arts can contribute to resilience, non-conforming to social stereotypes, and freedom of choice. I thank you, and my research is dedicated to wonderful children, Amy, and to my son Adam, that taught me without to be able to speak, without to be able to walk, that any life matters.